In this video, I would like to talk about what if Sukuna actually wins, and why, even if Sukuna does beat all the modern sorcerers like he did 1000 years ago in the Heian era, and he once again defeats everyone including Todo and Yuji, or even Gojo and Yuta if they made a comeback, he will still be defeated. And I will talk about this secret threat that would defeat Sukuna if Sukuna is arrogant enough to take them on directly. It will almost definitely destroy him. And yes, Sukuna has a secret weapon that if he uses, everyone will potentially die. And we'll talk about that as well, and why Sukuna won't use it immediately when he wins, if he wins. First off, let's take a look at the fight between Yuji and Todo and Sukuna, and why it matters. It's going to be quite interesting, kind of reminiscent of when Yuji and Todo were fighting Hanami. Yuji was already kind of beating Sukuna's ass before Sukuna pulled out the domain. So now that you potentially have Boogie Woogie, and you have Todo, who I'm betting is going to be able to use reverse curse technique now, and maybe potentially even a domain, although I think that is quite unlikely. Either way, you have the Boogie Woogie, and both Todo and Yuji will be hitting Sukuna with black flashes. And I think it's just going to be absolute hell for Sukuna for a few chapters. But as I talked about in my last video, I think Sukuna is eventually able to counter this soul disturbance technique from Yuji. Frankly, because Sukuna has the same experience with the soul as Yuji does. And he was even able to counter Mahito's soul attacks. So once Sukuna is no longer affected by this, he will also be able to land black flashes on Yuji and Todo, which will allow Sukuna to get back all of his power before he's defeated. And that's going to mean that Sukuna is going to be able to spam that fire arrow, spam the world cutting dismantle, and most of all, spam his domain expansion. If Sukuna pulls out this fire arrow again, and they have absolutely no way to counter it, even the world cutting dismantle would be very, very hard for them to counter. That's gonna be really bad for Yuji and Todo. But you know, this video is not really about why Sukuna will win. It's about what if Sukuna wins and why he would still be defeated. You know, in one of my previous videos, I talked about how I wanted to see Todo interact with Yuji's actual brother. I wanted to see if Todo would be jealous or what would he exactly say to Yuji's actual big brother. And now, here he is, just as soon as Choso is gone. Why did Gege have to do us like this? All in all, just rip Choso. Choso was one of the sweetest characters in the entire series. All he did was really just support Yuji. He was always so encouraging and always super nice, and he fought extremely hard. Choso was definitely one of the unsung heroes of Jujutsu Kaisen. And I think the perfect compliment you can pay Choso is that he was just the perfect model of a big brother. And I guess what I want to see is, will Ui risk his life trying to save Choso as well, who looks like he's just completely beyond saving? This is going to let us know if there's a difference between Choso's condition and all the other people Choso had to risk his life trying to pick up. Either way, there's one guy who is still alive who I think can actually defeat Sukuna. And I mean one of those people who was picked up by Ui. We saw Yuta was also cut by that world dismantle. And obviously Yuta's cut didn't really look as bad as Gojo's. But really the key, Rika immediately picked up Yuta, stopped Yuta from falling apart. And if I remember correctly, Rika can use reverse curse technique, and she can also use it to heal others. There is virtually nothing about Yuta's injuries that would not be fixable by reverse curse technique. I mean, think of all the crazy injuries that Hakari has had to go through, but he's easily able to fix all of it with his reverse curse technique. I'm not really sure if your curse technique disappears if you die, but Rika clearly did not go anywhere when Yuta received that final blow from Sukuna. The fact that Ui picks Yuta up on top of Rika's reverse curse technique, I think Yuta is going to completely be fine. In fact, I'd put the odds of Yuta being alive at about 85%. The reason why I think Yuta can defeat Sukuna if he comes back is because Yuta is the first character who is going to be able to use that world cutting dismantle. And even though they said in chapter 259 that this Fuga ability, this fire ability of Sukuna's is his ultimate technique. Maybe just based on the scale of it, but when it just comes to one attack, I don't think there's anything that should be anywhere near that world-cutting dismantle, just because it cuts through everything in the entire world, including infinity and other conceptual things in the world. I believe Yuta will be able to copy this ability, whatever the conditions are for Yuta to be able to copy an ability, whether it's Rika having to test the blood of that person or Yuta having to experience the ability, whatever it may be, it all has to have happened. And if Yuta comes back with that ability, I think he can definitely surprise Sukuna with it and just completely destroy Sukuna with his own ability. I also think Megumi will obviously be able to use that ability if he does make it out alive, because that ability obviously came from Maharaga adapting to infinity or limitless. But I don't think Sukuna is a fool. I think Sukuna will probably know that Yuta is able to use this ability, and he's going to be really careful. So if Sukuna is able to defeat Yuji and go back to full power, even Yuta with this world-cutting dismantle, I don't think will be enough to beat Sukuna, but it's definitely doable, it's possible, if he can surprise Sukuna. But so now we come to the main point of the video. Assuming Yuji and Todo somehow lose, and it's going to be the most shocking thing if the main character loses to the main villain. If Sukuna won, it would be unheard of, almost unlike anything we've ever seen. We've seen some villains win. For example, we saw Thanos win in the Avengers, but Thanos is actually a villain who you could kind of understand where he's coming from, where he's actually trying to help the world, similar to like Madara in Naruto. But Sukuna is almost pure chaos. You could call him evil, or you could just look at it as just a talking calamity or a natural disaster, which cursed spirits kind of are anyway. And the crazy thing is, natural disasters in real life, they win all the time, unfortunately. But I still think Sukuna is kind of evil, because he does have reason and you can reason with him. He knows what he's doing. But Sukuna still just decides to destroy everything that is weaker than he is. If even the main character can't defeat this monster, no one has a chance. I feel like at that point people will just give up. And I can't stress just how crazy of a development that will be. There will be a lot of people who are like intrigued by that outcome, people who are raging and absolutely angry at Gege. Not because Yuji lost. If Yuji wasn't the main character, it wouldn't really be that surprising, because we've seen Gojo, we've seen Yuta. We saw all kinds of great sorcerers come to fight Sukuna when Sukuna is extremely tired and is very injured. And yet, Sukuna just always finds a way to pull out that victory. Kinda similar to what they explained about Kusakabe just always finding a way. Sukuna is like that, but he's also insanely powerful in terms of just overall cursed energy, output, and just insane skill. And you could just say Yuji is just another one of them who lost to the King of Curses. However, people just will lose their mind if the main character, who is basically the last hope for a lot of people to defeat Sukuna, if he lost as well, a lot of people will lose their minds. And yeah, maybe people would say that it's the artist glazing the main villain. And yes, maybe that's true. Or Sukuna could just be that much of a monster. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I am no Sukuna fan. He's definitely kind of cool, like his abilities, his tattoos, his lore. There's a lot of cool things about Sukuna. But he's definitely just an evil bastard though. But I'll go more into this in another video. Sukuna is this powerhouse who even 1000 years ago, they could not destroy him. The only thing they were able to do is seal him. And we know back in the Heian era, it was the golden age of sorcery, and you had all kinds of sorcerers who were masters of barriers and who are also masters of sealing technique. But right now, if Sukuna is able to beat Yuji and everyone else, there's not really anyone or anything that would be able to seal Sukuna. Meaning that Sukuna would be set loose on the entire world and he would just wreak havoc. And actually, early in Jujutsu Kaisen, it might even be the first episode, the first time Sukuna is introduced, he talks about how he's excited to just go out there in the modern era, in this new world, and kind of conquer it and basically destroy everything in it. So we definitely know this is an ambition of Sukuna's. And actually, if Sukuna was a cursed spirit and he wasn't stuck in a human's body, I think he probably would be able to do it. But now that he's not a cursed spirit, I think it would be a huge mistake for Sukuna to actually try and do this. And this is why. Regardless of however strong Sukuna was meant to be, if he decides before he activates the merger, since obviously the merger is going to merge humanity, I'm not sure if it's just Japan or all of humanity with it, but even if it's just Japan, it's going to become this powerful being of pure cursed energy that is going to be really power-wise. I think it's going to be above anything anyone can do to stop it. And also, I don't know if it's going to be sentient or if it's going to be controlled by Sukuna. The whole thing is just a mystery. Sukuna said that he really wanted to wreak havoc on the modern world. This was the first thing he said when he was finally released from his seal and woke up for the first time in 1,000 years. If Sukuna decides to just directly attack the world, and we know that cursed spirits are kind of public knowledge now, since they are like attacking in all these cities, in the calling games, the world kind of knows what's going on at this point. I'm not sure if they're covering it up and saying like, oh, it's this natural disasters or whatever, because obviously cursed spirits are invisible. But I believe that at one point in the series, it was said that it's kind of public knowledge, and many of the governments know about this already. Not to mention that Kenjaku went to the US government. He gave them a demonstration of what is cursed energy, cursed spirits, and just all this crazy Jujutsu stuff. So they know of it and they know what's going on. And maybe this was the reason why Kenjaku told them about this. And obviously Kenjaku always has like reasons within reasons. However, now that they know it's a thing, if they see Sukuna come directly to attack the world, they would not be surprised. They know of these Jujutsu abilities. And so I'm sure the world governments would unite and try to take out this insanely powerful being that is almost beyond their comprehension. And you might think that humanity has no chance, but after I really went through all of it, I was surprised to find out that humanity actually probably solos Sukuna. So he would first have to face off against armies of tanks and machine guns and turrets and helicopters and jets. The Jujutsu Kaisen verse is around like big mountain level, even though there's some insanely broken hacks like Infinity, the World Cutting, Slash, and just a bunch of other stuff. The destructive force of the abilities, like the domain of Sukuna, is only about 400 meters max, if I remember correctly. And even their attacks don't really like in one punch destroy an entire city. It's usually like a building. The only interesting question is how fast are they? I believe that Sukuna is faster than most bullets and definitely faster than the speed of sound. So the speed of sound is called Mach 1, and I believe that Sukuna is probably around Mach 6, 7. But it was revealed to Maki how impressive and scary it was that Naoya was able to travel at Mach 3. And Maki couldn't even believe that that was a possibility. And eventually she was able to kind of adapt to his speed, but it was still like crazy mind-blowing that he was that fast. And he was the ultimate version of Naobito, who was known as the fastest sorcerer other than Satoru Gojo. And Curse Spirit Naoya was like the ultimate version of that curse technique. And he was around Mach 3 at tops, 3 times the speed of sound, or like a really, really, really fast bullet. And so eventually Maki was able to deal with his speed. And so I guess you could say that Maki is probably somewhere around Mach 2 and maybe Mach 3 now. But if you compare Sukuna's speed to Maki's speed, it doesn't seem like Sukuna is significantly faster than Maki. It seems like they're around the same speed, but I can understand if you want to give Sukuna the edge since he's injured and tired and everything. So let's say Sukuna at his full power is twice as fast. That would put Sukuna at around Mach 6. Only like a railgun could even hope to go that fast. So I tried to look it up, and it's a bit unclear whether you could see an object the size of a person moving at 4 times the speed of sound. Obviously you can't see the bullet because it's also so small. However, it was said that you can kind of see missiles with the naked eye, and many missiles can move at around Mach 5 or Mach 7. Some are even faster. But the thing with missiles though is that they're much larger than a person. And also the person, the further they are, the harder it is to see them. But also the closer they are, if they're moving that fast and they're right next to you, you're just not going to see anything. It's tough to say, but either way, Sukuna would be an absolute blur and he would be hard to see. Even if they were able to see him, it's not like you're gonna really hit him with bullets that are way slower than he is. He will see the bullets coming and it will just feel like some slow stones to him. They're probably not even going to penetrate his cursed energy reinforcement. But even if they were somehow able to penetrate Sukuna's defenses, he would easily be able to heal. The main problem for Sukuna in this aspect, it would be whether he would run out of cursed energy. We know Sukuna has a ridiculous amount of cursed energy, but it's not infinite. And he would just have to go through millions of armies basically. But to be honest, I don't even think he would get to that point. Once Sukuna is able to destroy like a few armies, whatever, they see that they can't really deal with him conventionally, they would break out the ultimate weapon of humanity. A weapon that is both our gift and our curse. The atomic bomb. If all the world leaders and military leaders start getting desperate and they say nothing is working against this guy, he's too fast, he's too strong, he has this invisible slashes that are just cutting through all the flying jets, the tanks, by one hit that they cannot even see coming. I think Sukuna would not even need his domain. That would just be wasting cursed energy. But eventually, if this country started breaking out nukes, I think this would essentially be the end of Sukuna. First off, the nukes could be carried by these hypersonic warheads basically that travel above 10 times the speed of sound, which is like beyond the speed of Sukuna. So even if you highball Sukuna, he can barely dodge these missiles. And dodging is not even enough because once a nuke has landed, the area at which it devastates is not 400 meters like Sukuna's domain or his furnace arrow ability. The small nukes are able to destroy an area of 5 kilometers instantly. Everything within a 5 kilometer radius is instantly vaporized and turned to steam basically. And this is no exaggeration, including cement and rock and steel, everything. It doesn't just melt, it evaporates. For instance, the highest known melting point of any element we know is tungsten at around 3,500 Celsius or at around 6,000 Fahrenheit. The surface of the sun is 5,000 degrees Celsius, and that means any material known to man will literally melt on the surface of the sun. Only at 5,000 degrees Celsius, or around 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And the craziest thing is, at around 7,000 degrees Celsius, or about 12,000 degrees Fahrenheit, basically every material turns into a gas. Even if something is made of metal, it will literally evaporate into a gas. The center of the sun is about 15 million degrees Celsius or 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. And at this temperature, it's not just about visible heat. You also have gamma rays and X-rays and all kinds of radiation. Everything turns to plasma. It's no longer even atoms. The fourth state of matter, beyond even gases. So famously, it's said that if you were to hit just the head of a pin to the temperature of the center of the sun, it would kill anything within 1,000 kilometer radius, or about 600 miles. And this is just the head of a pin, or a grain of sand. If you're able to heat it up to 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. So that is how insanely devastating 15 million degrees Celsius is. And guess how hot a nuclear explosion is? It can reach a peak temperature of 300 million degrees Celsius or about 600 million degrees Fahrenheit. Just goodbye Sukuna, problem solved. You might ask, why does it not destroy everything within 1,000 kilometer radius or even larger? That's because during a nuclear explosion, these insane temperatures are achieved only for a brief period of time. But trust me, this would still be long enough for Sukuna to feel that heat. And by the way, the largest nuclear bomb ever had a blast zone of about 22 miles or 35 kilometers. So everything within 30 kilometers was vaporized instantly. No way Sukuna would be able to get away from this. Especially considering the fact that they wouldn't just send one. There's like thousands of these in the entire world. And if they saw that there was no other way to defeat Sukuna, they would send like 100 if they had to. And I just don't see how Sukuna could possibly survive this. The only way I can see Sukuna winning is if he tries to go about it tactically and like an assassin silently, and he doesn't just take on the entire world directly. Kinda like what a mad genius like Kenjaku would do. Like, I feel like Kenjaku could easily take over the world if he wanted to, assuming there were no sorcerers to oppose him. But we know Sukuna is really the warrior type. He's not really like Kenjaku. And obviously if he also made the merger and he uses that to take over the world, and that will probably work, but that's a whole separate video, and this video is already too long, so I won't go too much into that. You guys let me know if Sukuna even has a chance of winning or surviving if he takes on the world directly. And by the way, interestingly, I think Gojo kind of does take on the entire world because of his infinity mainly and his infinite cursed energy, but that's definitely a whole other video as well. And if this video does well, maybe I'll do that one as well. But thanks for watching though, and please consider dropping a sub if you enjoyed the video. We're trying to hit 1K subscribers before the end of the year. But thanks for watching and see you in the next one.